Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing The Flash, supposedly the film that is going to reset the DC universe as we know it and kind of lead into James Gunn's rebooted version. It's a film that was essentially destined to fail before it even came out. And since it's been released, it's been a box office bomb and it hasn't really impressed critics and audiences all that much. Having seen it, I would say that it's a perfectly fine film. It's absolutely not one of the best superhero films, as James Gunn and some others called it. And on the flip side of that, it's also nowhere near as bad as some people have been making it out to be. I want to first address probably the kind of biggest criticism around this film, and certainly the thing that's been getting the most headlines, which is the CGI. Now, my problem with the CGI in this film isn't the way it looked per se, it's the applications of it. Because I think the main part of the film that fans are criticising in regards to the CGI is the Speed Force scene, which is essentially the narrative device they use to facilitate cameo appearances. But rather than have actors from those respective projects and universes come and film cameos for this sequence, the film attempts to recreate their likeness through CGI. So a lot of the cameo appearances in the film are CGI recreations of those characters. There is no emotional impact behind seeing that happen on screen. There is no giddy excitement at seeing that realised. Other than that, and the CGI in the Speed Force is subpar. For the rest of the film, I wouldn't say it was that detrimental. I would actually argue that the film starts really strong and just gets progressively worse. I've made it no secret that I'm a Snyderverse fan. I consider the 3 films in the Snyderverse trilogy to be the best live action projects that DC have had in this universe. I think ideologically, thematically and narratively, their grittiness and just maturity and approach to the storytelling and their world building was misunderstood and will be appreciated for years to come. So I was really pleased to see Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons back as Batman and Alfred. I think the first 25 minutes of the film really capitalizes on the relationship that was built up in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and was just a really fun sequence introducing us to Barry Allen again and Ben Affleck as Batman again. And I really enjoyed their scene together in the alleyway talking about their kind of respective pasts. I think that scene is what kind of grounds the whole film, and I'm really glad that Ben Affleck got to share that moment with Ezra Miller on screen. And Ezra Miller really carries the film. You know, they've got to do a dual performance essentially for the most part, and they absolutely excel at creating 2 different Barry Allens. Despite what you think of Ezra Miller as a person, it cannot be denied that they own this character really well. They sell the comedy perfectly. The dramatic, more emotional moments are also really convincing. Performance-wise, I'd say that's pretty much all there is to write home about. I don't think Supergirl gets a lot to do, certainly not enough to make any real lasting impact. Same with Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is just there for nostalgia bait. A lot of people have been hyping up his fight scene. It was good. It's not Batman vs Superman warehouse goods by a long mile. It was nice to see him in action, but I didn't mind once he suited up and was just along for the ride. Again, he doesn't get much of an arc. It's very much tick off the classic one-liners, kick some ass. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think the film fully capitalizes on the emotional drama that could have been mined. So Batman and Supergirl end up being kind of sidekicks to Flash on his mission, and kind of just trapped in a Groundhog Day version of events, which is where we spend our most time with Michael Shannon and as Zod. And I know that Michael Shannon's been on record saying, you know, it wasn't a very satisfying experience as an actor to come back and be utilised in the way that he was. I can absolutely see why. He's just there to spout Kryptonian jargon and essentially get beaten up by Supergirl. I don't think they even get the physicality of Zod right in this film. In Man of Steel, he was a hardened, born and bred warrior. And in this film, he is just a punching bag. And in a film that essentially doesn't have a villain, it's just this idea of time as an antagonist, and the idea of the multiverse becomes sort of a villainous temptress. You could use characters like Zod as just fantastic foils in the film, which it doesn't exploit as much as it should have. Zod really just falls flat in this film. And the same with the appearances of Dark Flash, who we only really get to see in one scene, who I think could have been, again, used more to sell the trauma and the entrapment of Barry Allen's past and him facing his past demons and coming to terms with his grief. So what I'm getting at here is going into the third act the film does fall apart. It loses sight of that emotional journey and cohesively tying up this multiversal madness. And I've heard a lot of rumours about how the ending of this film was changed a few times and reshot based on plans for the new DC going forwards and who was going to appear at the end. It doesn't mean anything to me seeing him come back. I thought it worked in leaning back into the film's humour, which I think it does really well. As I said, I think Ezra Miller is really great at the comedic beats in this film, and I think the ending worked in that regard. I just pray to God that there's no narrative plans to carry on with what they tease at the end of that film. It's got some creative action sequences, it has got some emotional weight. I just think, again, this idea of multiverses isn't quite narratively balanced as best as it could be. And that seems to be a staple thing now across the genre. I don't think that the multiverse as a narrative concept works that well. Beyond servicing cameos that wouldn't usually be possible without this idea of the multiverse, I think the idea of endless realities and endless alternate versions of these characters is utterly boring. But The Flash at least leans into the chaos of it, I think, a bit better than other films, so I will give it that. I do think it's worth a watch. I don't think it's amazing, but if you have seen it, let me know what you guys think. Do drop a comment below, and also please consider liking and subscribing, guys. That's always a huge help to the channel. So we'll see you for the next vid.